This is a very fascinating story. As I said, we began the story talking about these $2,000 checks. And I'm just curious, I'm going to ask the audience, because we are live, what do you think? Like, is this the right move here? Is this just a political plot? Is he trying to get the buy-in from the people to kind of put some pressure on the Supreme Court so that they okay the tariffs? I mean, I would think the pressure's already there because, as I said, it's going to be very costly if this thing gets overturned. He does have some other emergency powers that I think that he could put into play, and I think he could actually use some very directed tariffs that are not as broad, that he still would have some legal oomph behind. But if they come forward and they do this, well, then nobody's getting those $2,000 dividend checks. A lot of you, I'm curious, because I was looking at some of the news over the weekend, and I think I tweeted this out, and you guys were like, hey, we have to pay down our debt. We've got this $37 trillion in debt, and it's a lot. And somebody else, as I mentioned earlier in the show, had said to me, a friend, is it really fair to say we're going to have a cutoff? Because if it's a dividend check, then we've all made money, right, collectively as a country, and then the money should therefore go to everyone. You might not be in a position where you can say, hey, only certain people get it. But I think Donald Trump is no fool here. He's like, okay, it's not going to go over well if it looks like I'm giving $2,000 out to billionaires, plus they don't really need it. So let me give it to the working class Americans who have been hurting. And before you say, okay, is this going to cause more inflation? Because that would be my instinct, right? That would be my fear. And let's be honest. Like during 2020 and the third time around, you had Biden sending out the stimulus checks because, you know, hey, Trump got to send his two, Biden had to send his third, combined with Chuck and Nancy spending just oodles of money, trillions of dollars that we didn't have, including the $1.5 trillion that they're trying to re-up, right, for healthcare, and that's what the shutdown's about. On top of which, you had Jerome Powell over at the Federal Reserve printing and printing and printing and printing. And so all of those things combined did lead to massive double-digit inflation on the producer price index, 9.6 or 9.8% inflation in consumer prices. And that was not good, right? Like we all lived it, and it was not good. And if they were smart, they would have tried to keep inflation contained, because they had to have known that would put Donald Trump in a more positive light with the American people. They'd say, hey, I'll take a few mean tweets if it means lower prices at the gas pumps and more stability in my family's life, economically speaking. And so that's where we are right now, where they're saying, okay, $2,000, we like it, but the question being, would this create inflation? And I'm going to tell you, I think we're in a different environment. And I'm not saying this just because I like Trump and want to be supportive of the tariff policy here. I don't think, you know, all tariffs are created equal, and there's some reasons to do this, especially on the China front. Very, very important nationally, strategic, economic, and frankly, security-wise, strategic reasons to be more aggressive with countries like China. But the question of, can we afford the $2,000, you know, per person? Possibly. And his point is, we're going to grow the economy so much that it won't be as detrimental because we can handle a little bit more debt, so to speak. Not that we really want a lot of it, right? But that we can handle a little bit more. Again, he explains this so well, like Joe Biden never could, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the United States, speaking with OAN.
We also might make a distribution to the people, almost like a dividend to the people of America.
Boom. Okay. And then the reporter says, how much?
How much are you thinking for that, sir?
Well, we're thinking maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Be great.
Inflation is completely stable.
Okay, so now he goes into sort of his reasons why he thinks it can. Now, here's my question for you. Do you think you qualify for it? Listen to what he says on why he thinks, first of all, we can manage this, because I would love to see Joe Biden talk like this.
Yep. It's around target rate, and the country is ultimately taking in unprecedented amounts of tariff revenue, more than $200 billion at this point in time, sir. What do you believe this extra source of revenue can be put towards, and how big of a game changer is it for your administration? Well,
ultimately, you know, because we're talking about a just kicking in. They're just starting to kick in. But ultimately, your tariffs are going to be over $1 trillion a year, in my opinion. We're going to do something. We're looking at something where, number one, we're paying down debt because people have allowed the debt to go crazy. But, you know, with growth, with the kind of growth we have now, the debt is very little, relatively speaking. You grow yourself out of that debt. It's not a question of paying it you grow yourself out. And the numbers are so much bigger than they ever were. The numbers we have now are bigger than they ever were. So when you have $36 trillion in debt a year ago or 2 years ago, and you have a lot less revenue coming in, then you have 37 or 38. It's not 38 yet, but it will be. And the numbers are so much bigger. All of a sudden, 38, you're under-levered, whereas for 36, you were highly levered. We're not highly levered anymore. Now, with that being said, we'll pay back debt, but we all...
Yeah, so he wants to pay back the debt, but simultaneously, he wants to make sure that the people get something out of this as well. I mean, I like it in the sense that, hey, he wants everybody invested in this. He wants everybody invested in the policy. He wants everybody invested in America. And who knew that you could actually create a profitable engine out of this country, right? He's like, we got stuff to sell. We got people to bring in for investing. And so we want to make sure that that helps everyone. So that's one of the questions. We're talking everyone. How do you make sure it helps everyone? And who is sort of front of the line here? As he said, $2,000 a person. I mean, that could be $4,000 a family. And I don't know, do you have to work or not? I'm looking at your comments. Don Baca, that's funny. That's one of the reporters from OAN. He does look young. I gotcha. But anyway, I'm looking at some of the others, and Eric's pointing out, hey, anybody working 2 or 3 jobs should be able to qualify. And I hear you, right? Like, why, just because you're working 2 or 3 jobs, does that mean that suddenly you don't qualify because you're making more money, because you're choosing to be industrious? And this is where you're going to start getting into a sticky zone, and it gets back to taxation, et cetera. Hey, why not just make it for everybody and say, like, this is the deal. If you're an American citizen, that's a big and important distinction, right? If you're an American citizen, then you should be able to partake in this beneficiary dividend, and everybody's going to get it. And there you go, right? And can we handle it right now? I think that we're in a very different environment. I don't think inflation is as front and center. Obviously, you've seen that gas prices have been going down. We've seen the consumer price index coming in pretty darn tame, so much so that people are worried on the other side, right? The bias is turning towards, okay, we need to do what we can to keep this economy going. Maybe we need to print a little bit more money over at the Federal Reserve. You got Jerome Powell, who's already cut rates, and now he's looking to do more rate cuts. You've got the private sector jobs reports coming out, ADP, for example, as well as Challenger Gray Christmas that came out last week. And what they're showing is that layoffs are going up and we're not adding as many jobs. Now, the ADP report often gets revised, so I would take it with a grain of salt, but they're showing only roughly 43,000 jobs being added to the economy in the last month. And we need to be growing at a much bigger rate in order to really, start to see some growth. So maybe Donald Trump is saying to himself, hey, people kind of need this. People kind of, they could actually benefit from getting this $2,000 in their pockets. So For Real Eye is saying $2,000 to seniors would be monumental. Let that sink in. Another landslide in 2028 without the help of the stupidity of the lefty loonies. Hey, I mean, who needs universal basic income when you're talking about this in a different way? Just think about it for a second, in a different way, because the idea here is that we're turning the U.S. into kind of a business itself for the people of the U.S., right? So instead of gimme from the government, it's like, hey, how can we think about, becoming more like a sovereign wealth fund? And if you guys, you want to be here, he's talking about the 50-year bond, for example, right now. Why not, right? Rates are low. Get some security locked in. I mean, this team is so financially astute. You got Bessent, who's brilliant as a financier. You've got the president himself. He's surrounded himself with smart people, and they're not like the typical politicians. They're trying to think like financiers, and they want to finance the America of the future. So all of this is really fascinating. We're watching it here in real time. I know, Cat Crazy, I hear you. No more printing. No more printing. We don't want the Fed doing that. But you know what the president's point is on this? He has said, look, it's still our middle class that's hurting. Our middle class, the folks out there that are working 2 jobs, just trying to do everything right. They're the ones really, really hurting in this environment. And so he feels that they're being unfairly penalized by these higher rates because they're the ones, middle class, they need the car loan, right? You need the car loan in order to buy the new car. Well, you're not going to move any cars off the lot if the car loans are too expensive. Same with housing. You're not going to be seeing much turnover, not a lot of flexibility. Some people can't afford to move into a new home because they can't buy it or they can't sell it at the appropriate rate because mortgage rates are so high. So it's an interesting thing to think through. Oh boy, peace of my mind. It's a good day, right? 2,500 likes and still counting. I think that you guys really, really, really like the idea of getting a $2,000 check right about now. So, he wants you to have it. Again, Donald Trump coming forward with $2,000 dividend checks, a promise that he made or started to make as far back as July. Will you qualify? Probably not if you're a high earner. How are you defining a high earner? It's probably anybody in that top tax bracket. So if you're paying the most on your federal taxes, my hunch is that you're not going to be able to qualify for this, I should say. But I want to go back to what the president said as far back as July. This was something that was on his radar.
Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate? We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news.
Indeed. You just made a lot of news. I'll tell you guys, it's going to be very hard to compete with him because he's just thinking the way everyday folks think. And the Democrats find themselves on the losing side of everything. Case in point, here's a Democrat representative who went on to MSNBC to say, like the ladies on The View, how disappointed he is in the Democrat Party. I mean, how dare, Adam Smith says, the representative, how dare they give in to Donald Trump? How dare they actually move to reopen this government? You understand how unpopular this is?
And since I have you, can I quickly get your reaction to the potential end of the shutdown?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I think Democrats were fighting the absolute right fight. I don't intend to vote for this agreement. I do hope that those of us who are trying to stop Trump will recognize that the far larger issue is the cruelty that Donald Trump showed during the shutdown. Not only was he unwilling to address the healthcare crisis that is going to deny millions of Americans health insurance and drive up the cost for tens of millions more, but he was actively doing everything in his power to stop American people from getting food because he thought it would score political points. We are in a stronger position to push back against Trump now than we were on October 1st.
I'm sorry, buddy, but you're the ones that are preventing people from getting the food, okay? This was set to expire. You could have delivered a clean CR. You chose not to. That's your choice, okay? You chose not to. And he's in charge. He does have the House. He does have the Senate. He does have the executive branch. So when he's in charge, he's holding all the cards. So why are you going to sit there and scream all day, thereby hurting the very people that you are allegedly trying to help? Well, he's saying, I'm thinking about a $2,000 rebate dividend check.
October 1st. I think we should have kept at it, but it was not as easy a call as some are saying. And I think we really need to emphasize that this has showed Trump and his administration and also Mike Johnson in the House of Representatives, my God, shutting down the entire House, for 7 weeks now? Complete abdication of responsibility at the expense of the American people. I want to continue to prosecute that and make sure that Democrats don't spend too much time turning on each other. I don't agree with the decision, but I know where the fight is. The fight is to try to stop Trump's policies and offer a better future to the American people. That's what we need to continue to be focused on.
Okay, you keep trying to focus on those things, okay? You can focus and try, but you guys, I don't know, every single time there's an issue, you're just always on the losing end of it. It's like there's no common sense anywhere to be found. And along comes Donald Trump, who's just sort of like, okay, I get it. This is what people need. Let's make sure that we give them safety. Let's make sure we give them security. Oh, and by the way, we can turn the US of A into a bit of a business here, and we can have dividend checks for everyone. So, take that, ma'am Dami, with your universal basic income. Take that, AOC. Take that, Bernie Sanders. Hey, let's come up with a capitalist approach to all of this. Really fascinating and interesting stuff. And I'll just say to you, they are no match for him. They are no match for him in any way, shape, or form. By the way, the market likes it. Market's up. We'll see how this all shakes out. But the good news is, the stalemate is ending. We're going to open up the government again. Maybe there's some rebate checks coming for some people, depending again on your income level. And you know what? The Republicans are looking like they just won.